It is midday and this is Africa Update coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on Channel Africa Radio from an African perspective. I'm Lulu Gaboo. I'm in studio with Onele Nzinzi, Buntle Headbush and Msibudi Makura. Coming up in this hour.
It is very critical that this day has been proclaimed by the president last year, and this is inaugural occasion or first time that we are commemorating this.
Namibians are remembering over 70,000 people massacred by German colonial forces over a century ago.
It's a question of how do we accommodate the have-nots in society.
And government's call to assist in curbing hunger on World Hunger Day today. But first up, the news with the Onele Nzinzi and our sports headlines with Msibudi Makura.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu, and greetings to our listeners. South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, is in Kampala, Uganda today for the 12th high-level meeting of the Regional Oversight Mechanism of the Peace, Security and Cooperation Framework for the DRC. The summit is taking place against the backdrop of the deteriorating political, humanitarian and security situation in the eastern DRC. The event is also expected to reflect on the current deadly conflict in Sudan and the worrisome political situation in South Sudan. The United States says it is assessing the future of its military command for Africa. This is according to its top general for the continent, who has called on African governments to make their views on its possible elimination known in Washington. American media outlets reported in March that President Donald Trump's administration is considering merging AFRICOM, which became a distinct geographical command in 2008, with the U.S. command in Europe to cut bureaucracy. Speaking to reporters before a conference of African defense chiefs in Kenya, AFRICOM Commander General Michael Langley said he had discussed the issue with officials on the continent. Deputy Representative of the United Nations Children's Fund in Mozambique has told Channel Africa that the number of children living in poverty survive on less than $1 a day. Yannick Brand says the sharp increase was first seen in June 2015 of the number of children living in monetary poverty. A recent report by UNICEF states that around 13 million children live in poverty, whether monetarily, multidimensional or both, Brand elaborates.
This report has the particularity to look beyond monetary poverty and look at the number of children that are deprived from their basic rights, from 8 categories that goes from having access to education, to safe water, to health services, for example, or even birth registration.
Namibia is today holding its first National Remembrance Day for more than 70,000 Africans that German colonial forces had massacred more than a century ago. The victims had been targeted because they had refused to let the colonizers take their land and cattle. The BBC's Elsa Ogni.
For many years, Germany did not publicly acknowledge the genocide of the Over-Herero and Nama communities that took place between 1904 and 1908. But 4 years ago, Germany apologised for its role in the slaughter. Almost 40 years before their use in the Holocaust, concentration camps and pseudo-scientific experiments were used by German officials to torture and kill people in what was then called Southwest Africa. There'll be a national holiday and a minute's silence and candlelit vigil outside Parliament in Windhoek.
Lastly, SpaceX has launched its 9th Starship rocket from its base in Texas, with the spacecraft progressing further than any previous test. Despite it being the greatest progress to date, the rocket encountered issues in orbit. The BBC's Peter Bowers.
This was Starship's 9th test flight. The unmanned rocket launched successfully from Texas, but soon encountered problems in orbit, causing it to spin uncontrollably before its planned re-entry through Earth's atmosphere. The spacecraft experienced what SpaceX described as a rapid, unscheduled disassembly, meaning it broke apart before it could splash down in the Indian Ocean. In a post on X, the company said the test would help it improve Starship's reliability as it seeks to make life multiplanetary.
Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Lamine Yamal signs a new 6-year Barcelona contract, while Novak Djokovic makes a winning start to a French Open bid. I'll have details of these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Have you been struggling to find Channel Africa?
Oh yes, where can I find you guys?
Well, you are in luck.
Warning, radioactive zone detected. Please enter.
Listen to The African Perspective on our brand new SABC Plus app. Download the fresh and easy to use app from sabcplus.com or the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Or just command your phone to find SABC Plus on your phone and check out all this good stuff. And that's where you will find Channel Africa, The African Perspective. Oh yes, this is fresh and easy.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Hawa wa Afrika Kusini wenye asili ya kizungu ambao wamepewa ukimbizi huko nchini Marekani. Je, nini chanzo cha wao kuomba ukimbizi nchini Marekani?
Wenyewe wajaomba ukimbizi. Kuna shirika fulani inaitwa AfriForum, shirika mbili za wazungu ambao wanatetea haki ya wazungu hapa, AfriForum na Solidarity. Hao walienda Marekani kufanya kampeni kusema kwamba wazungu wananyanyaswa hapa Afrika Kusini, na walizofanya hiyo kampeni serikali iweze kuwafuatilia kujua nini ambacho mnasema kwamba mnanyanyaswa.
Kuna namna ya wao kwamba wamepoteza uraia wa Afrika Kusini, na je, endapo Trump akamaliza muda wake madarakani, uhalali wao wa kuishi nchini Marekani ukoje?
Itakuwa vigumu, kifupi itakuwa vigumu wenyewe kupoteza uraia wao.
Darubini ya Afrika 11 kamili hadi 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Africa Update with Lulu, Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406-9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. And today on Africa Update Asks, we turn our focus to Namibia, which is holding its first National Remembrance Day for over 70,000 Africans massacred by German colonial forces more than a century ago. And today we ask, is remembering colonial era massacres enough, or should remembrance be linked to reparations and reform across the African continent? We want to hear from you. Send us your views, your thoughts, whether it is a text or a voice note to +2763 406 9126 on our social media platforms at Channel Africa 1 on X and Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. And we ask again, is remembering colonial era massacres enough, or should remembrance be linked to reparations and reform across the African continent?
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Namibia is today holding its first National Remembrance Day for more than 70,000 Africans that German colonial forces had massacred more than a century ago. Other victims had been targeted because they had refused to let the colonizers take their land and cattle. My colleague, Tabiso Lohoko, spoke to Professor Charles Asom, a team leader representative of the affected communities, and is attending the event.
We are currently busy with the reparations negotiations with the German government, together with the Namibian government. We, as the affected communities, the Namas, Hereros, and other communities like Bandero, Tamara, and San, we are part and parcel of the negotiation process. And it is very critical that this day has been proclaimed by the president last year, and this is the inaugural occasion, or the first time that we are commemorating this.
Take us down memory lane, back to the days that saw the killing of the 70,000 people.
Yeah. No, in fact, the German colonialists wanted to possess the land that were owned by the Hereros and Namas and other indigenous communities. And as a result, there was resistance to the dispossession of the land. And as a result of that, a decree was made against the Hereros and Namas. First against the Hereros in 1904, October, and subsequently against the Namas in 1908, 22nd of April. The intent was to destroy or to eliminate all the Hereros and Namas so that they can have access to the land and the property. So that's where it emanates from. UN Convention talks about targeted mass killing, and that's exactly what happened. The Namas and the Hereros were targeted, and this mass killing happened as a result of that. And as you said, it's over 100,000 people that were massacred.
Why is it taking so long for the government to initialize the Genocide Remembrance Day?
No, it's part and parcel of the process. What happened is the motion was brought by a certain member of the parliament in 2017. 2016, and subsequently, as the Constitution prescribes, consultations were held for the acceptance and the endorsement of this with the communities and so on. So there was a wide consultation, what they call Legal and Constitutional Standing Committee of the Parliament. And that took almost 3 years, because these consultations can only take place during the recess time of the Parliament. So it took 3 years for the process to be completed. And subsequently, last year, and further consultations were happening. And last year, it was proclaimed by the president, the former president of the Republic.
Your members took to Germany and spoke of the reparations. Here we are again on this matter of Remembrance Day. A draft deal had been reached between Namibia and Germany. What does that deal entail?
Germany must acknowledge that they have committed genocide. That's number one. Number two, Germany must come and apologize for the atrocities or the genocidal act. And number three, they must pay reparations. We have attained that through the joint declaration. Germany acknowledges that indeed genocide was committed, and it is prepared to come and tender apology. It's included in the joint declaration, and then reparations will be paid. Although we compromise on the term reparations and we are using the term atonement, but at the end of the day, things happened that hindered or inhibited the completion last year. But amongst other, the death of our founding president, the government of Germany not being intact, and so on. But now there is a substantive government in Germany, and as a result, now as of next month, which is June, we'll have substantive discussions. Documents such as the joint declaration, financing agreement, and all the other documents that have to be signed are complete. We are about to conclude in due course. But all things being equal, it should be this year.
That was Professor Charles Asom, a team leader representative of the affected communities. And today on hashtag Africa Update asks, is remembering colonial-era massacres enough, or should remembrance be linked to reparations and reform across the African continent? We want to hear your thoughts and your views on our social media platforms at Channel Africa 1, and that's on X and Instagram, also at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +2763, that's 406 9126, hashtag Africa Update asks.
Hello, Africa. We would love to hear your voice on our radio station. Be part of the fun and send a shout out or greeting message to your loved ones and your favorite Channel Africa presenters. Whether you're in Africa, the diaspora, or anywhere else around the globe, we want to hear your voice. Send your shout out message by sending an email to info@channelafrica.co.za or send them to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Help us diversify our sound with your voice. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Big news from Channel Africa. Now you can listen and watch your favorite shows on Channel Africa. Channel Africa is streaming live on the internet on all our social media pages at Channel Africa 1 from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. Central African Time. Download the SABC Plus app or visit our website www.channelafrica.co.za and stream us live on all our social media pages at Channel Africa 1. Channel Africa now streaming for your eyes and ears only. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu, Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 16 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Now, as South Africa observes Child Protection Week this week, Well NGO says it's crucial to focus on one of the leading causes of child deaths in South Africa, road crashes. Road crashes are a leading cause of child deaths in the Southern African nation, and it's essential to prioritize education, infrastructure improvement, and enforcement of traffic laws to prevent these tragedies. Tutongo Beni has the report.
As South Africa observes Child Protection Week, the high number of children dying in road-related accidents is under the spotlight. 4 children die daily, with more than 100 deaths every month as a result of careless driving in the Southern African nation. The country's Road Accident Fund, RAF, revealed that the Southern African nation has a 5-year average of more than 1,200 road fatalities among school-aged children between the ages 5 and 19. Now, Wheel Well, a non-governmental organization which is dedicated to enhancing child road safety through education, advocacy, and community-driven initiative, has called on the prioritization in education infrastructure, improvements, and enforcement. Peggy Mars, founder of Wheel Well, says children don't need to die, and it's the responsibility of adults to keep them safe.
Road deaths are the leading external cause of death for our children through all ages, actually. And my concern is that these deaths are preventable. If we use car seats in cars and visibility gear for our children, we can save their lives. They don't need to die. You see, children, especially children under the age of 10, do not have the skills to keep themselves safe yet. It is a development that happens over time. Children have a very small perception of what is risky, and they cannot judge traffic yet. Also, their bodies are very fragile compared to ours, especially their brains, because their skulls have not hardened yet. They are also smaller in stature. So it is very important that we as adults take up the responsibility of keeping our children safe.
Mars says they're aiming for 0 child deaths and is urging parents to ensure that they have their children strapped in a car seat for their safety.
Yeah, we're certainly aiming for 0 deaths for our children. No children should die on their way to school or playing outside. So what we would like parents to do is to organize and make sure that there's adult supervision when children walk to school, or certainly even high school children, looking out for them, not just for road traffic crashes, but for all the other dangers that await our children on their way to school. And I'm asking sincerely to all parents who drive with their children, get a car seat. Now, we will be at Super Quick in Spartan on the East Rand on Friday morning from 9 o'clock till 12 with 30 car seats. And we are doing an appeal to parents to please come around, come and visit us. Let us help you select the correct seat for your child, help you install it, and help you keep your child safe.
Wheel Well creates a safer road environment for children to empower them, their families, and communities with road safety knowledge and resources through its work in the community. This weekend, Mara says they will be running a car seats campaign and have urged those who no longer use their car seats to donate them.
So for our children in private vehicles, we have our Car Seats for Kids campaign. Here we ask parents who's got an old car seat gathering dust in the garage on the back of the cupboard, please consider donating it to us at any Super Quick dealership. We will then make sure that car seat is safe, that it is clean, that it is ready to keep a less fortunate child safe. And then we also have our Halo Beanie campaign. This is a campaign where a sponsor purchases a bag with enough wool and other materials in it to knit 100 reflective beanies for our young children to keep them warm and to keep them safe.
Wheel Well wants to create safer road environment for children to empower them, their families, and communities with road safety knowledge and resources. For Channel Africa News, I am Tutongo Bene in Johannesburg.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
Hello, Africa. We would love to hear your voice on our radio station. Be part of the fun and send a shout out or greeting message to your loved ones and your favorite Channel Africa presenters. Whether you're in Africa, the diaspora, or anywhere else around the globe, we want to hear your voice. Send your shout out message by sending an email to info@channelafrica.co.za or send them to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Help us diversify our sound with your voice. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Africa Update with Lulu, Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 22 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission says it discovered several violations committed against detainees during a visit to the Harare remand prison. 94 political activists and journalist Blessed Mhlanga, who were recently arrested, had been held at the facility. They were released last week on bail ranging from $100 to $500 each after a long period of detention at the prison. The activists were arrested on the 31st of March during protests to force President Emmerson Mnangagwa to step down. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by the spokesperson at the Commission, Jessie Majome. Jessie, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update. All right, we just lost that connection to Jessie Majome. We will try and get her back on the line as we try to unpack this big story. Jessie is back on the line. Jessie, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon to you, and thank you for taking an interest.
Now, Jessie, what prompted the visit to the Harare remand prison?
It is the mandate of the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission. It's established in terms of the Constitution to promote and protect human rights. And one of the functions we have is to monitor places of detention, as well as also monitor the human rights situation. In this particular case, the arrest of Blessed Mhlanga and the 94 people who were arrested in connection with 31 March demonstrations were at Harare Remand Prison, and it's an issue of interest to the Commission, particularly because we are observing a trend whereby despite the provisions of Zimbabwe's constitution that provide a right to bail for arrested persons unless there are compelling circumstances, we are finding that when people are, a lot of the time when people are generally, Zimbabwe is doing extremely well regarding the right to bail. But however, every now and then when people who are arrested and have matters that are of political interest are detained, we are noting that their bail applications, they are held for prolonged periods before they are released before trial. And this is this is unusual. It goes against the law. It also goes against the trend because, as I have said, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Zimbabweans are released on bail in fulfillment of that constitutional provision that we adopted in 2013. So I decided as the chairperson of the commission that it's also important to go and see how the people are and ascertain firsthand the circumstances surrounding their arrest to start with, and then also their general state of well-being. So this is what prompted the report, because it's an issue of interest, it's an issue of concern, because we routinely monitor prisons as well, hospitals, children's homes, homes for the elderly, etc. We do that as well, but in this particular case, I found it important to go and also ascertain firsthand this issue, and also look at what's going on regarding to the detention that appeared to continue being prolonged, and bail was not being issued.
Now, Jesse, overcrowding seems to be a major challenge when it comes to the Harare remand prison. Now, talk to us about what you discovered when you visited that prison, and also having spoken to different individuals about their cases, and what are you finding on the ground in terms of how long people are held before they're able to get bail or before their cases are attended to?
Okay. I will say that generally Zimbabwe's prison capacity is low, and this is understandable. Our prisons were built, actually most of our prisons, let me say 95% of our prisons were built before independence in 1980, when the population was much smaller. So there hasn't been an expansion of prisons. So there's resources towards running and building new prisons. So therefore, crowding is a phenomenon that we've had. It's chronic. It's always there. But then when you get, for example, 94 people that are just all of a sudden they are now in prison, they are detained and awaiting trial. It can only lend, it can only add to the problem. This is why, because it's a big number, and then they continue to be in jail. It makes things even more difficult generally. So this is another reason why I went to say. So I can say that generally speaking, as I said, Zimbabwe is doing very well regarding the amount of time that a person waits in custody if they're denied bail and gets bail. People are getting bail. We used to be, before the constitution was adopted, that has this provision that provides that anyone who's arrested must be released unless there are compelling reasons. Zimbabwe used to experience prolonged, pre-trial detention. There were people who would languish in prison. I remember I once did a matter where there was a Zambian national who was waiting for trial and on remand for 3 years. We used to have situations like that, but that has gone. But what is now lingering is that every now and then there are delays like this one, when people, and even last year, the Jameson Timber matter, where people were in custody for, I think they stayed for more than 1 month, nearly 2 months. So we are having those, and also maybe previously we had job seeker. These are unusual, and if I might say rare cases. Statistically, they account for about maybe 1% or less than 1% of cases, because everybody is generally getting bail if they are, if they qualify for bail in terms of the law. So,
now, have you engaged with government with regards to the prison situation, the prison crisis that Zimbabwe is facing in terms of, when construction of new prisons will be done, if it is part of the plan going forward?
Okay, I will say that, I can't say that we really have a crisis regarding crowding in Zimbabwe's prisons as such. There are prisons where, like this remand prison, there are instances, our prisons are, it's a chronic issue where there's crowding. There are more people in prison than should be there, and it's a long-term problem that has been there. And I'm happy to, and I want to commend the Zimbabwe Prisons and Correctional Services, because they do actually very well. They do remarkable work. They are very human rights conscious. The way that the environment and the culture in prison is, despite all these like long years of also not sufficient funding, they actually do very, very well. There's been very marked improvements in the way that prisoners are kept, the detainees. So our role, and you're right, we do recommend, we have a high-level task force that we have with the Prisons and Correctional Services of Zimbabwe, where we continue to meet with them, and we also advocate for resources to Parliament to the government regarding improvement in the needs for Parliament. And I want to believe that recently the Minister of Justice did remark that there is need to build more prisons.
Yeah. Well, Jesse, we have run out of time and are going to have to leave it there for today. And we seem to have lost that connection to Jesse. That's Jesse Majome, a spokesperson at the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, joining us on the line. It is 12:30 and our news headlines up next with Onelen Sinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Congolese former President Joseph Kabila has arrived in the rebel-held eastern city of Goma for talks with locals, a month after declaring he wanted to assist in ending the crisis in the war-ravaged region. The Electoral Commission of South Africa says it is still conducting public consultations on the prospects of e-voting in the country. The public consultation process, which began in March, is set to end in September. And Namibia is today holding its National Remembrance Day for more than 70,000 Africans that German colonial forces had massacred more than a century ago. Channel Africa News, I'm Onelen Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Onele. We say good afternoon to Msibudi Makura with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. A very good afternoon from the sports desk. Now, Lamine Yamal has signed a new 6-year Barcelona contract following a breakout season in which he helped the Catalan club win the domestic treble. The 17-year-old Spain's winger's existing deal was set to expire at the end of the 2025-2026 season, but his new contract will keep him at Barca until 2031. Yamal, who made his Barcelona debut at 15 years of age in 2023, scored 18 goals and made 25 assists in 55 appearances as Barcelona won La Liga, the Copa del Rey, as well as the Spanish Super Cup in Hansi Flick's season as the first manager. He was in his first season as the manager of the side. So Barca said Yamal signed a new contract on Tuesday in the presence of club president Juan Laporta and the sporting director Deco. Yamal has scored 25 goals in 115 games for the club, becoming the youngest scorer in the history of La Liga, the Copa del Rey, as well as the Spanish Super Cup. Yamal, who will turn 18 in July, is also the youngest player to reach 100 appearances for Barcelona. He also has earned 19 caps for Spain and was part of the side that won Euro 2024, beating England in the final in Berlin, Germany. On to some tennis news now. Novak Djokovic began his latest bid for a record-breaking 25th Grand Slam singles title with a commanding win over Mackenzie McDonald. The former world number one ended his wait for his 100th ATP titles in a singles event in Geneva just last weekend and maintained his current upturn in form with a 6-3, 6-3, 6-3 win over the 98th ranked American. Djokovic, who turned 38 just last week, has now won all 21 of his first-round matches that he has played at Roland Garros. 6-seed Djokovic will play Corentin Moutet, who beat fellow Frenchman Clement Tabor in the first round in straight sets, also in a game played on Thursday, or rather Tuesday. Now, the one-sided victory over McDonald completed 2 minutes short of the 2-hour mark with his fifth successive win following a run of three straight victories. Meanwhile, South African tennis player Lloyd Harris produced a courageous display after losing in 4 sets to Russian 17th-seeded Andrei Rublev in the first round of the French Open. Now, Rublev took 2 hours and 22 minutes to defeat the 28-year-old Camptonian 6-4, 4-6, 6-1 and 6-1 on court 7 at Roland Garros on Tuesday. Ultimately, it was the Russians' greater match play as well as versatility that proved the difference against Harris, who underwent back surgery surgery in October and also had limited match time at the highest level in 2025. Harris will take great encouragement, though, from his performance, especially how he hung with Rublev during the first 3 sets, and especially in the second when he came out on top and a few lengthy rallies. The big serving South African will draw confidence from his exploits on the Paris clay as he prepares now for the grass as well as the hard court portions of the season coming up in the next few months. Boxing news now. South Africa could have a new world boxing champion this weekend. Sevatar Koopman has been given a crack at the International Boxing Organization's super welterweight title. He takes on Angolan-born champion Usma Lima in Kempton Park in the east of Johannesburg on Saturday. The country is also set to take centre stage in the world of boxing this weekend, and Empress Palace draws unprecedented international attention. Koopman has the pedigree to become the next IBO super welterweight champion. He will also be protecting his unbeaten record since his amateur days and is confident of a win.
This is definitely my biggest fight of my career, and the preparation has been going good. I'm happy with the camp. I'm happy with everything I've done leading up to the fight. I've put in the work, and so I'm definitely confident. I'm excited. I mean, the fight is here. The time is here. I'm really excited.
Now, the Angolan Lima, who now fights out of Portugal, is rated 11th by the IBF, while Koopman enjoys the top 15 ranking within both the WBA as well as the WBC. Lima last fought in December when he overcame the previously unbeaten Shukdeep Singh Bhatti for the vacant IBO belt. It came on the back of another top performance when he was unbeaten, where he was outpointed by the unbeaten Haro Mathieu Fosan to set up a title shot. Now, the showdown against the South African will thus be his third consecutive outing against an unbeaten opponent.
The fight will be war, and precision with me. It's gonna Saturday. I will put everything to keep my belt, to come back to Portugal with my belt.
And that's a wrap from the sports desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa 1. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa 1. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Well, thank you, Tim Sibudi Makura, with our sports update. Say good afternoon to Buntle Hedbush with our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
A very good afternoon to our listeners. In our first look at the business news this afternoon, our top story: Emirates' global aluminium subsidiary in Guinea has accumulated a stockpile of nearly 2 million metric tons of bauxite since the suspension of its operations last year. The subsidiary, which is equally owned by Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund Mubadala and Dubai Sovereign Wealth Fund, the Investment Corporation of Dubai, operates one of the largest bauxite mines in Guinea through its Guinea Alumina Corporation subsidiary. The standoff with Guinea's government highlights the aggressive push by the military authorities to increase benefits from the country's vast natural resources. The South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi, says consumers should not bear the brunt of steep taxes while corporates enjoy huge profits without adequate contribution to the developmental agenda. He has also condemned National Treasury's proposed fuel levy increase, saying it will further burden struggling workers. He was speaking at the International Tax Reform Summit in Sandton, Johannesburg yesterday.
There would have been such a hullabaloo about the VAT, but there is no hullabaloo about the 16-cent increase on the fuel levy, as if it is exactly not the same. The poor, the working class, spend up to 60% of their income on transport and food.
Japan's Nissan has started offering buyouts to U.S. workers and has suspended merit-based wage increases worldwide as the automaker expands cost cuts amid weak performance in key markets. CEO Ivan Espinosa announced a new round of cost cuts this month that include closing 7 production sites globally and cutting 11,000 more jobs, taking its total planned workforce reduction to around 20,000. As part of its cuts, Nissan has offered separation packages to workers at its Canton plant in Mississippi. The African entertainment industry is a rapidly growing sector projected to reach $112.90 million by 2027. Key drivers include increasing internet access, digital adoption, and collaborations between African artists and the diaspora, particularly in South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya. At the forefront of this is Hayani Africa, a brand and talent management agency that seeks to build a bridge between homegrown talent, Pan-African storytelling, and international opportunity. CEO of Hayani Africa, Tumelo Moema, explains why she ventured into the business of entertainment.
I was a creative myself in the entertainment industry, dealt with a lot of creatives, but most crucial was working with the likes of Getty Images, right? Into sub-Saharan Africa, and once you start realizing how far the creatives work go in licensing and so forth, you start then realizing that there's more lack of knowledge. There's more information that can still be shared with the industry and empowering them in understanding how far their skills and talents go.
The Trump administration has issued a new license that restricts operations of the U.S. oil giant Chevron in Venezuela. The announcement is a big blow to the Venezuelan government, which could lose more than $500 million a month in revenue from cancelled exports. The new license has banned Chevron from producing and exporting oil in partnership with the Venezuelan state company PDVSA. The BBC's Leonardo Rocha explains the reason for the decision.
President Trump said that President Maduro broke his promises of running free and fair elections last year, and also because, according to President Trump, President Maduro's failure to cooperate on his migration policies. Venezuela at some stage refused to take back deported Venezuelan migrants, and President Trump didn't like that, eventually sent them to that notorious high-security prison in El Salvador.
Now for a look at our indicators this afternoon, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1 naira 582. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 26. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 39. And in Zambia, it's 27 kwacha 20. Moving on to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 65. Russia, 80 rubles 03. In India, it's 85 rupees 30. China, it's 7 yuan 19, and South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 89 cents. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 88 to the euro. Looking at the commodities this afternoon, gold is trading at $3,321 and platinum at $1,088 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $64.12 a barrel. Those are the business news. For any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Bontle Hetbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. We are on OpenView's audio bouquet. Channel 628. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 12:45 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Say thank you to Buntle Hedbush with our business news. And today on hashtag Africa Update Ask, we focus on Namibia, which is holding its first National Remembrance Day for over 70,000 Africans massacred by German colonial forces more than a century ago. Now, today's question is remembering colonial-era massacres enough, or should remembrance be linked to reparations and reform across the African continent? And we do have a message or voice note that is responding to this particular question. Let's take a listen.
Good afternoon, Lulu. With regards to today's topic, I believe that remembrance honors the past, but without reparations, the injustices continue to live on. I think that true healing needs both memory and material redress, and I feel that this is the only way that we can restore the dignity of the affected individuals on the African continent. Thank you.
And that is just a voice note that came through early on today, and would like to continue hearing from you with regards to today's question. Send us your thoughts and your views on whether remembering colonial era massacres is enough, or should remembrance be linked to reparations and reform across the African continent. You can send us your thoughts and views on our social media platforms at Channel Africa 1 on X and Instagram, and Channel Africa on Facebook, and send us your voice notes to +2763 that's 406-9126. Hashtag Africa Update Asks.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Today, as the world commemorates World Hunger Day, NGOs and others are calling on governments to step up in curbing hunger in their countries. In South Africa, Unite Against Hunger believes that more needs to be done to address the needs in the country. My producer, Tracy Bumgard, caught up with the Unite Against Hunger's central coordinator, Dr. Busiso Moyo, and began by asking him about the importance of a day such as World Hunger Day.
The importance of this day is about, those at the bottom of the pyramid. It's a question of how do we accommodate the have-nots in society. More so, this resonates for a context like ours in South Africa, which is underpinned by a lot of, joblessness, a context of the highest inequality in the world. So in a context such as ours, I think what we are forging ahead with as the Union Against Hunger on this World Hunger Day is to just bring the South African populace, closer to the issue of hunger. Let's grapple with it as a society. Let's all come together and build a broader alliance going to assuring a nourishing food system for all in South Africa.
Despite the high levels of hunger in the world, we still see millions of tons of food going to waste each year. What are we doing or not doing to ensure that everyone can get food?
Yeah, so, it's not a clear forward question, because there's a lot that's happening and there's also a lot that can still be done. I think at this stage, what we're seeing is that there is, some kind of social entrepreneurship that is taking place in the space, particularly from corporate actors. So when we're looking at food banks, when we're looking at, that kind of curtailing of some of the food waste, right, within the food value chain. But what is more worrying is that there is still a lot of food that goes to waste in South Africa. We're speaking to estimates of at least 10 million tons of food goes to waste annually in South Africa. And in the context of like ours, with the latest general household survey speaks to the fact that 25% of South Africans are considered hungry. Yet we throw away 10 million tons of food every year. So, it's a very complicated one because, the biggest issue here, which is the elephant in the room, is that, government does not necessarily produce food as well. So when we're looking at value chain dynamics, when we're looking at the economics of it all, it's about, what are corporate actors, fidelity to this constitutional codification of the right to food, and how is it that they're also carrying this burden in a way that can speak to the modalities and the better functioning of the food system in a way that then, reinforces some of these concerns we have around wastage, around, household food insecurity, and how we can, infiltrate there in a meaningful manner.
So now, who is the Union Against Hunger, and what do you do?
So the Union Against Hunger is a newly formed movement that was recently launched on the 26th of February on the outskirts of Joburg at the People's Pantry. The Union is a broad alliance that seeks to agitate and militate around the issue of hunger in South Africa as state failure. And in essence, what it is that we're currently doing is that we're incubating this movement for the people. So in an ideal world, what we're trying to do is to build a movement that will be driven and led by hungry people themselves, and so far as foregrounding the lived experience of this issue and bringing the statecraft at play closer to what, our people are going through on a day-to-day basis out there.
You're calling on ShopRite to drop their prices. Can you elaborate on why only ShopRite when we have Checkers, Pick n Pay, Spar, all these other brands as well? And have you managed to address this with the ShopRite CEO, Peter Engelbrecht, as yet?
No, not as yet, because as you can see, we are still trying to gain that gravitas. Hence, we've made the call to say, is the public rallying behind us, right? Now, the Union Against Hunger is singling out ShopRite in particular. Now, why ShopRite, you ask? That's very important. We think ShopRite are, the biggest profiteers in the food system. At some point, ShopRite was priding itself in being the biggest employer in South Africa. So in that spirit, we are calling on ShopRite as the leading head honcho of the corporate sector insofar as the food issue is concerned to show leadership, to take the step forward and, give some kind of directive in terms of what, this interface looks like for business and human rights. So part of it is us saying, we're urging ShopRite to show leadership, but not only that, to also be transparent, right, in terms of the optics and the logics of food pricing. Let's play open cards. Let's all understand, the dynamics that can then ensure that we are all not, subject to these economics of scarcity that sometimes can be just, overwhelming and so forth when we look at what's possible in the space. But obviously, our petition is also not only directed to, corporate actors. We are also calling on the state, particularly the first citizen, the president. We're calling on him to show leadership in the space.
A couple of years ago, near the area that I stayed in, we actually had people that were planting vegetable gardens on their pavements and that. They would remove the grass and then plant these vegetables. And people could come past and just take what they wanted, or what they needed really. But that seems to have been shut down. People don't seem to be doing that much anymore. Isn't that another way of actually addressing world hunger? To use the public spaces for vegetables?
Indeed, and I agree with you 100% because part of it, right, is about building solidarity. And this is where the state has failed us. But more than that, I think, when you look at, the city regions, the urban context, what we also then realize that local governments in particular don't really have a food security mandate. And I think that's a missed opportunity because if we're talking about, building this solidarity economy, having land allotments where people can till the land for food, supporting informality, supporting food markets, all of these things, are needed in the South African food system. And this is where some of our frustrations lie, to say, the possibilities are endless because, at different intervals we seem to have gotten it right, but we often abandon some of the inroads we make. Another case in point is the solidarity we saw, right, during the COVID-19 episode. People coming together, community kitchens, getting active, trying, to really build that solidarity that I'm getting at. And so to bring it all back home, I think what we're getting at is to say, how can the state bring about an enabling environment, right, for us to then put a claim on our right to food? If that looks like us tilling the land, can the state provide some land allotments for communities where we can go till these fruits and vegetables and people come in? Can we have, food banks? Can we have restaurants that serve the populace? Can we expand the National School Nutrition Program into, early childhood development as well? Can we, so there's so much that could be happening in the state. And it's just a question of, the state carrying this burden in a way that makes sense to all of us.
There's a number of events taking place across South Africa today. Can you tell us more about these events?
Indeed. Thank you so much for highlighting our gathering. So the ball is already rolling. We had a gathering yesterday in anticipation of World Hunger Day today in the Vosloorus community in Gauteng. That was spearheaded by the Treatment Action Campaign in partnership with the Union Against Hunger. And so that was yesterday. Today, to commemorate World Hunger Day, we have a presence in 3 provinces today where we'll be hosting mini ndabas and community hotels and gatherings. Our first major mini ndaba is taking place in Gauteng, in Lenasia, at the Lenasia South Civic Center this afternoon. In KwaZulu-Natal, in KZN, we will be partnering with the biggest socialist movement in the country, known as Abahlali Basemjondolo, which is a shack dwellers movement. A whole-day workshop with them, speaking about what's possible in terms of agitating and building solidarity around the issue of hunger. And then I am here coming live from the city of Cape Town, where we'll be gathering again here in the CBD in Cape Town with a whole range of stakeholders, women on farms, community activists, academics, NGO partners. And then once again, the discussion is how can we forge ahead and build this mass broad alliance that is going to flesh out the issue of hunger in South Africa as something that is really, really alarming, and we need to intervene with a sense of urgency.
That was my producer Tracy Bumgard speaking to Unite Against I beg your pardon, Unite Against Hunger's Central Coordinator, Dr. Busiso Moyo. And it is that time of the day where we say good afternoon to the Upside team with me, twisting my tongue there for a second.
How are you doing, Lulu?
Well, thanks. How are you? Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, what's coming up today?
So we're going to be talking to... So there's an institution, a culinary academy, that has a couple of students who will be graduating very soon. But we want to touch on the topic of the importance of having chefs backed by qualifications, as opposed to chefs who are home trained. Everyone who says, "Hey, I'm very good at cooking and all these things," and then they end up in the kitchens. Actually, they end up in the restaurants. So the importance of distinguishing between the two, and why it's so important to have a qualification in the culinary space. And then we chat to the founder of Cracker Zack. I don't know if you've ever been to Cracker Zack. It's like an adult entertainment arcade area in Rosebank.
No, I haven't.
I think they have another one, maybe in Cape Town. I could be wrong, but the Rosebank one, they've got bowling, they've got darts, they've got pool and arcade games, but age restriction from the age of 21 and above.
Really?
It's a proper adult entertainment place. So we're going to be talking to the founder and just the concept behind it and why it was so important to introduce this to the market. And that's the conversations that we'll be having as I also stumble with my own tongue. But that's what's coming up this afternoon on The Upside.
Well, that's coming up at the top of the hour with Deboholo Kuleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. For myself, Lulu Gaboo, and the Africa Update team, that's our producer Tracy Bumgard, our technical operator Mondli Mdambo, and social media Elaine Bengani. It's been a good day. Let's do this again tomorrow and continue with us on our socials. Bye-bye.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And looking at your top stories this hour, Congolese former President Joseph Kabila has arrived in the rebel-held eastern city of Goma for talks with locals. This is a month after declaring he wanted to help end the crisis in the war-ravaged region. Kabila, who has denied accusations by Kinshasa that he supports the M23 insurgency, agreed to step down following protests and external pressure in 2018 after almost 2 decades in power. He has been out of the country since late 2023, mostly in South Africa. The former president will begin holding consultations today with citizens in Goma, which fell under the control of the M23 in January, during an advance that has seen the group seize more ground than ever before. South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, is in Kampala, Uganda today for the 12th high-level meeting of Regional Oversight Mechanism of the Peace, Security and Cooperation Framework for the DRC. The summit is taking place against the backdrop of the deteriorating political, humanitarian and security situation in the eastern DRC. The event is also expected to reflect on the current deadly conflict in Sudan and worrisome political situation in South Sudan. The Electoral Commission of South Africa says it is still conducting public consultations on the prospect of e-voting in the country. The public consultation process, which began in March, is set to end in September. The Commission says it is reviewing the feasibility and policy implications of the electronic voting in South Africa while examining the experience of other countries. Last month, the Commission's Chief Electoral Officer, Sai Mamabolo, said that although e-voting was inevitable, it would not be used in the upcoming 2026 local government elections.
We've issued a discussion document, and the aim of the discussion document primarily is to create a common national understanding of what e-voting is. And also in that discussion document,